Can you guys hear me? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me, please. There we go. Do. Yes, you guys can hear me. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so in my opinion, based on this initial reaction to what President Donald Trump has just spoken at the conference, I have how many pages of notes do I have based on what I said? 1, 2, 3, 4. Four has happened here. And then we can decide, together as a collective, what has actually happened here. And I think that's better lighting. So, I think. Hold on. It appears like the camera is freezing up. Is that right? Is that what's going on here? All right, you guys should be able to hear me, but not see me right now. I'm just going to try and see what's going on with this. Do. All right. Let's see. All right, you guys should be able to see me again. I'm just getting this whole thing set up again because. Okay. All right. Right. So, the president of the United States has just fumbled the Bitcoin bag, in my opinion, short term. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, has just fumbled the Bitcoin bag, in my opinion, at this conference. President Donald Trump was a few minutes late and then took the stage and basically continued. Well, the speech was a good speech. It was a President Donald Trump speech. It was a America First, MAGA speech. And I had interesting thoughts from people on both sides of the aisle, because I know people from both sides of the aisle that are live there listening to him. I got a friend who's bought a very expensive ticket to sit with the president with a small number of people after this initial event. And so I was texting people to say, hey, how's this working out for you live while you're there? And the reaction I got was, this is amazing from one side, and the other side was nothing. He's not really saying anything, right? So at that point, I realized, like, okay, this is basically a standard MAGA speech with a little bit of Bitcoin added into it. Now, here's the crazy part. I don't expect, unlike a lot of American people and a lot of people around the world, I don't expect any politician to truly understand Bitcoin. I don't expect that. What I expect them to do is support Bitcoin, because Larry Fink and BlackRock are doing the work behind the scenes to make that happen. I've been saying this since last year. It's been almost a fucking year since I've been saying that BlackRock is in charge now, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm keeping my phone open just to make sure, just in case something happens that, afterwards that I missed or I'm not listening to here. So, look, here's what I think. This was a traditional MAGA rally. I think that the speech was a little bit tone deaf to the audience that it was being, being portrayed to. I think that overall, long term, this was a great speech. Short term, it was a fumbling in the bag moment, and I think that they let RFK steal the moment. RFK obviously announced the fact that, yesterday, if he would win, which he has absolutely no chance of doing, if he would win, he would instruct the Treasury through an executive order to start acquiring 550 Bitcoin a day. And look, I am, just so everyone understands, most of the people that watch my stream are from America, but I want you to understand that I am a single issue non-American voter. I do not have an American passport. I'm not an American citizen. I do not vote in America. Therefore, my thoughts are my thoughts based on what's going to serve me the best. I do not care what happens inside the borders of America. I'm way past that now. Everything is downstream of fiat. So we have to fix the money, and how we get there, how fast we get there, what we have to break to get there is not my concern. I live like an American elite, which is living outside of America. I use America for all the great things that it has. I love America. I love the United Kingdom, but these countries are making bad choices and bad decisions societally. So therefore, I don't care. If we want to print money with the illusion that we're going to change people's genders, great, print it, buy the Bitcoin. If we want to print money with the illusion that we're going to build a border wall, print money, buy the Bitcoin. Don't care. Print the money, buy the Bitcoin. That's what I personally care about. I'm a single issue non-American voter, and therefore what I care about is Bitcoin going up. Because the faster Bitcoin gets adopted and price rises, number go up, is part of Bitcoin going up, is part of the adoption. We currently have 3,566 people watching this, by the way. So if you're watching this, subscribe to the channel. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please do that. It helps me get this realistic take of Bitcoin, not the delusional happy hippie, take that, and or the happy hippie or the doom and gloom boomer take that's normally out there to people. And you subscribing helps me do that. So please do that. So firstly, if you were in the room and you're watching this, you're tuning in, put your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think happened. If you watched it on YouTube, let me know what you think happened, because I want to compare. I'm going to read all the comments afterwards. They're going through too fast right now. I want to read all the comments, and I want to understand how people are thinking. But from my perspective, look, I don't really care what happens inside the border of America, societally or anything else. I care about one thing. That is getting Bitcoin into the consciousness of the entire world, so we can finally get my country, the United Kingdom, and the country I love next after the United Kingdom, which is America, back on the right path. And the only way we can do that is by getting rid of fiat and moving people onto Bitcoin. So here's a summary of the Trump speech from my perspective, right? He has respect and admiration for Bitcoiners. He compared it, which is one of the most important things. He compared it to the steel industry. He compared it to the steel industry and how it's developing and could develop into an essential industry, basically, right? Which is huge, absolutely huge. And by the way, as we go through this, I'm going to give you the summary of what I think about the speech, and then I'm going to tell you why I think in the long term this was a good speech, but in the short term it was a fumbling moment. Okay. He said that, Bitcoin is the 9th biggest asset in the world. The fact that the president of the United States says that is quite important. And he said, what happens when it's the 9th biggest asset right now? It's about to overtake silver solidly. What happens when people figure out what it actually is? He's talking like a Bitcoiner, right? He's talking like a Bitcoiner, and which is good. You can clearly see that somebody in his camp understands what this asset is. Now, I'm not supporting the full speech because I think it was a missed opportunity here. But here's the reality of what he said, right? He then went on to say, look, this is about America first. I want people to mine Bitcoin, make Bitcoin in America, right? Normal America first commentary going on, okay? Now, another bill has just been announced. I just got a notification on the phone. U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis officially introduces bill to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve and purchase 1 million Bitcoin worth $68 billion. We'll talk about that in a second and why I think that's good news now coming after the speech. And, let's talk about the speech. He said, we cannot let China dominate. He said, we want everything Bitcoin mined, minted, and made in the USA. They've apparently raised $25 million in Bitcoin and quote unquote crypto donations, which is huge, right? That's absolutely huge, because what you want is the president getting so much money from Bitcoiners that every single year he has to come and bow down to Bitcoiners. That's what we want. We want the Bitcoin lobby to be strong and powerful. He said Bitcoin stands for freedom, which is great. Then he went on and he got the biggest applause and the biggest, the biggest cheers from the audience, which is he said on day one, he's going to fire Gary Gensler, right? I don't care about that anymore. I think Gary Gensler was the MVP of Bitcoin in this last cycle. I think the next one's going to be Larry Fink. But everyone seems to be happy about that because people are addicted to revenge. I don't really care about revenge. I want to move forward, and I want to understand like what's going on in the future. So yeah, that was a great talking point. Fire Gary Gensler. It's not really a big talking point because Gary Gensler is a Democrat. He's probably going to quit anyway. He's not just going to stay there, once his party's no longer there, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I think he got some free energy out of that, which is cool, and people in the room got very, very happy and whatever. As far as I'm concerned, the Bitcoin ETF came through Gary Gensler. Yes, it took a little bit of time, but the industry needed cleaning up anyway. He said he's going to shut down Operation Choke Point 2.0. He said he's going to appoint a Bitcoin advisory council so that the laws that are written about Bitcoin and quote unquote crypto are for people who are written by people who understand the industry, which is good. He said that he's going to basically tell the Treasury to cease and desist all work on a CBDC and that no CBDC will be issued while he's president. And of course, that's great. It just means that we get delayed by 4 years, because if anyone thinks that one single president makes an actual impact on what's going to happen with the future direction of this world, I think you're a bit naive, right? I think you're a bit naive. It might delay it for a certain period of time and make it sound good, but I think you're a little bit naive if you think that one president is going to make that difference. By the way, right, I can't believe it. We've got 4,925 people watching this live stream. That's the most we've ever had. I want to thank you for your time and attention and your interest in what's going on here. That's absolutely important. Please subscribe to the channel. That's very important. Go to Twitter. Follow me there on Twitter, at British HODL on Twitter. It's extremely important so we can get this normal perspective, which is what I've been trying to do for a year now, bring a normal perspective on Bitcoin out to the world. He said that he believes in self-custody. All right, whoever's on the team there did a great job at bringing self-custody into the fold. He said that he's going to operate regulatory framework for a USD stablecoin so they can export the US dollar to other countries that need it. And he said, this was the part that I love the most. He said, during my 4 years in office, Bitcoin surged almost 4,000%. And during Biden's period in office, it's only gone up like 50%. It's true. It's also cherry picking data. If it was anyone else, if I said something like that, we'd be saying, oh, he's cherry picking data. But really, it's true. Yeah, but it's just basically cherry picking data, right? And I get it. And this gives me an idea of what the future is going to be like, right? Because if the former president is elected to be the next president, you can imagine that he's going to say, from the moment I stepped on the stage at the Bitcoin conference and promised all the Bitcoiners I would save their asses, Bitcoin's gone up, 3,000% at every press conference that he gets a chance to say that. And that's absolutely amazing, right? Because then every single time he's on the public stage, he's going to be talking about Bitcoin, right? So fantastic moment there. I thought that was the best one because it gave me an idea like, this is what I thought this president would do. And that's exactly what he started off by doing. So I thought that was pretty good. And then he said there's going to be no tax on tips. He said Bitcoin mining America would be a Bitcoin mining powerhouse. He said, never sell your Bitcoin. So the good thing here is that he's got a team at least in place that's behind him that is making it very, very clear in their communication through his words that they understand the major talking points of Bitcoin and what's important to Bitcoiners. So that's really good. I think that's really good. When you got the president of the United States telling you to never sell your Bitcoin and that we're going to the moon, right, which is words that he used, that there's a team behind there that really understands Bitcoin. I don't expect him to understand it, but I expect whoever's behind it to understand it, and he's done that, right? He also then finally made the correct announcement, which I was like, okay, this is going to come now because this is just sounding like a MAGA rally and a tone-deaf, a tone-deaf speech here. And that was he's going to keep 100% of all seized Bitcoin and basically put together a strategic national Bitcoin reserve, right? And that's what he said. He didn't promise any purchasing. a strategic national stockpile of Bitcoin, and then he recommitted to commuting Ross Ulbricht's sentence, which is another important talking point for Bitcoiners. So that was basically it. That was the speech. Now, here's my thoughts on this. Absolute fumbling of the bag short term, right? This is not a good speech in terms of driving attention. RFK has won that conversation as far as I'm concerned. RFK went on stage, even though he's got no chance of winning, as you know, from what I understand. He turned around and he said, on day one, I'm going to issue an executive order, and it's going to instruct the Treasury to buy 550 Bitcoin a day until we have a national reserve of 4 million Bitcoin, which is 8,000 days of purchasing, which, complete and utter bullshit, because it's never going to happen with him winning. But at the same time, it's great headlines. Bitcoiners love it. It's something to talk about. So it was done, right? RFK won that conversation. RFK had done an amazing job at getting into the the mind state of Bitcoiners, right? I don't expect RFK to be a Bitcoiner. I don't expect President Donald Trump to be a Bitcoiner. I don't expect Kamala Harris to be a Bitcoiner. I don't expect anyone to truly be a Bitcoiner. What I expect from these people is that the people advising them are Bitcoiners. That's what I expect. That's what I expect my Bitcoin donations, and I haven't donated to the campaign because I'm British, but I expect the Bitcoin donations to at least buy that. I expect them to buy people that understand Bitcoin in the advisory team. So RFK was amazing. He won the show. He won the whole Bitcoin conference. This speech is going to go down, President Donald Trump's speech is going to go down as the most historic presidential speech at a Bitcoin event, because it was the first one. However, it is a fumbling of the bag, because what he should have done, if Cynthia Lummis, who has just announced this bill to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve and purchase 1 million Bitcoin worth $68 billion, now that's come. What he should have said right at the end of his speech is brought her up on stage and announced it then. But they didn't do that. So it's a fumbling of the bag. Now, let me give you my perspective as a professional investor and thinking long-term on this. This is if he had announced that we're going to go and buy 551 Bitcoin, basically one-upping RFK, which is what I wanted him to do, right? Wanted him to do that. If he announced that, it would have sent shockwaves through the system that I don't think he was willing, or anyone is willing, to deal with. So what he's done is he's just said enough. He's announced the launch of a strategic national reserve. He's announced how much he loves and respects Bitcoiners, and he loves and respects the idea of Bitcoin. And he's just dropped the bucket right there. He's just gone far enough without going too far and sounding like a crazy person like RFK. Because what happened to RFK? Everyone started looking at going, wait, this is 8,000 days of purchasing, right? This is 8,000 days of purchasing that you're talking about. How's that even going to matter? Because you're only going to be president for 4 years, and you're talking about announcing 22 years of daily purchasing, right? It doesn't make any sense. He went just far enough, and now Cynthia Lummis has announced this bill, right? So you have a president that's aligned on creating a strategic national reserve. You then have a senator who's announced this bill. And now the institutional investors, which is the ones that Larry Fink advises, are going to be told this. By the way, that 200,000 Bitcoin that is in the National Reserve, that's never going to be sold now, because that's going to be in the National Reserve, right? The 200,000 Bitcoin that America has seized, that is now going to be America's Bitcoin. So it is going to be a long-term good speech. It is not going to be a short-term good speech like what we thought was going to happen. But this speech is going to make institutions very comfortable. It may not make Bitcoiners very happy, but it's going to make institutions extremely comfortable. It is a thoughtful speech from the perspective of an institution. It is not a thoughtful speech from the perspective of the audience that he was talking to, which makes me think that whoever has helped him formulate this speech understands what institutions need to hear, which is Bitcoin's not going to be sold off by America. The president is pro-Bitcoin. We are moving forward. This is a development of a new industry, et cetera, et cetera. It's just comfortable enough to allow institutions to go, you know what, we need a 5 or 10% allocation. The more it looks like President Donald Trump's going to get reelected. It is perfectly calm. It is disappointing to the max for Bitcoiners, but it is perfectly calm for Bitcoin, and it's perfectly calm for institutions over the long term. That's what I think has happened here. We will not see the benefit of this speech for the next few weeks. It is not going to be a God candle speech. That's not happening, but it will be a good speech overall for Bitcoin from an institutional perspective. That's what I think has happened here. RFK stole the show, but President Donald Trump here is gonna seal the bag for institutions that want to get into Bitcoin. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of BlackRock influence here, because this is what, if you're an institution, you don't want to hear that the president just jumped off the fucking cliff and said, we're gonna buy 4 million Bitcoin, for America. Because again, I tweeted this out, and if you're not following me on Twitter, that's where I put my instant thoughts. So go to twitter.com and /British HODL, and you'll see that what I tweeted was, I don't think he's going to announce a strategic reserve, because if you were China, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear from the United States, your number one arch nemesis and competitor, that they're about to buy 500 Bitcoin a day. Because what the fuck are you going to do? You're going to start buying right now. Trump's not going to get into office, even if he is elected, until January. It doesn't make sense as a competitor for him to do that, right? What it makes sense for him to do is say, we need to look at building a strategic reserve. And that's pretty much what he did by saying, I'm going to take the 200,000 that we've seized and put it into our national stockpile of Bitcoin, right? I think it's a great speech. I think it's not a great speech for us who wanted to go to the fucking moon right now. It's not for that, right? Fumbled the fucking bag on that one. It's not exciting, but it's perfectly stable. It is perfectly designed and orchestrated for a long, drawn-out Bitcoin battle that's going to happen for this election. That's my perspective on it. I don't think that this was, a truly terrible tweet. Terrible speech. I think it was, I think it was full on MAGA, and I can understand why the leftists are going to be disappointed by that. It was full on MAGA. Let's go MAGA, 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 MAGA. I think it was a little bit tone deaf to the audience that he was speaking to, but I think overall he did really, really well. Just fucking disappointing, because we're not going to see that God candle today. So I want to let the conversation develop. I'm happy that the Cynthia Lummis announcement has come. I'm going to go see. I just jumped immediately straight onto the live stream after he finished talking. So I want to go see what that's about, and I want to make comments on that. And then you need to subscribe to the channel to get, and so we can continue this conversation on what's actually going on here. But overall, I'm so happy that 6,700 of you are on this live stream. That makes me, it's unbelievable. It's truly humbling that 6,700 people are tuning in live stream in this. Look, take this away from this speech. Yes, it was disappointing. Yes, it was disappointing, but I want you to understand this. This is a historic moment. Imagine if this speech was just 1 year ago. Imagine if this speech was just 1 year ago, right? We'd all be fucking over the moon, right? It'd all be like we just took a ton of Viagra, okay? That's what would happen. But now we're here. Now we got all these politicians, because of the lobbies that are behind them, talking about Bitcoin. So this isn't, and RFK fumbling, winning the bag, basically fumbled it for Trump, because he went there and basically said, this is what we're going to do. And it was too good, right? Trump has now come in with a much more stable speech, and I think this is going to be the win that we needed to see. So go, take a breather, understand that this wasn't the God candle speech that we thought was going to happen, but understand that if you are truly pro-America, that's not the speech that you wanted to hear, because it would allow all these other nations to start front running you. And the fact that he's made all of these announcements is very, very good. And now we're going to start seeing how this develops into the election and eventually when he becomes president. One thing I do know is that Donald Trump is now officially bowed down to Bitcoiners. The president of the United States as an office has bowed down to Bitcoiners. The industries that have the majority of the capital understand that this is a very, very important speech and very, very important asset for the presidency and for America. And we all can see clearly where this is going. So go look at that. I'll be back on later and we can do Q&A later. These are my initial reactions to the speech. Terrible in the moment, amazing for the future. We'll talk to you later. I love you guys. Remember, there's always only 3 rules to Bitcoin.